Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode in our History Bite series. Today we will discuss the Berlin Wall, which came to symbolize the Cold War's division of East from West Germany and of Eastern from Western Europe. The Berlin Wall's origins trace back to the years after World War II, when the Soviet Union and its Western allies carved Germany into two zones of influence that would become two separate countries, respectively: the German Democratic Republic, also known as East Germany, and the Federal Republic of Germany, also known as West Germany. Located deep within Soviet controlled East Germany, the capital city of Berlin was also split in two. Over the next decade or so, some 2.5 million East Germans, including many skilled workers, intellectuals, and professionals, used the capital as the primary route to flee the country, especially after the border between East and West Germany was officially sealed in 1952. Seeking to stop this mass exodus, the East German government closed off passage between the two Berlins during the night of August 12, 1961. What began as a barbed wire fence, policed by armed guards, was soon fortified with concrete and guard towers, completely encircling West Berlin and separating Berliners on both sides from their families, jobs, and the lives they had known before. Over the next 28 years, thousands of people would risk their lives to escape East Germany over the Berlin Wall, and some 140 were killed in the attempt. Ronald Reagan's 1987 Brandenburg Gate speech echoed the message of another famous American at the Berlin Wall some 24 years before. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy uttered four famous words: "Ich bin ein Berliner," which is German for "I am a Berliner," in a similar show of defiance in the face of Soviet oppression. When Kennedy gave his speech, the mortar was barely dry on the edifice. Although many East Germans in 1987 still looked to escape, their enthusiasm was tempered by an improved system of fences, barbed wire, watchtowers, and other security measures, and by steady handling by a string of hardline Soviet leaders: Nikita Khrushchev, Leonid Brezhnev, Yuri Andropov, and Konstantin Chernenko. The year 1985 offered a glimmer of hope with the elevation of Mikhail Gorbachev to the position of General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Gorbachev hoped to pull the country out of economic stagnation. By 1987, he initiated a new policy of glasnost, or openness, which resulted in a major cultural thaw. Freedoms of expression and of information were significantly expanded. The press and broadcasting were allowed unprecedented candor in their reportage and criticism, and the country's legacy of Stalinist totalitarian rule was eventually completely repudiated by the government. Despite this, the Berlin Wall, that heavily fortified symbol of Cold War divisions, seemed as solid as ever. On June 12, 1987, standing on the West German side of the Berlin Wall, with the iconic Brandenburg Gate at his back, Reagan declared,
"General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate." Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Reagan's tactics were a departure from his three immediate predecessors, Presidents Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, and Jimmy Carter, who all focused on a policy of détente with the Soviet Union, playing down Cold War tensions and trying to foster a peaceful coexistence between the two nations. Reagan dismissed détente as a, quote, one-way street that the Soviet Union has used to pursue its own aims, end quote. On November 9, 1989, the East German government opened the country's borders with West Germany, including West Berlin, and openings were made in the Berlin Wall through which East Germans could travel freely to the west. The wall henceforth ceased to function as a political barrier between East and West Germany. That night, thousands of East and West Germans headed to the Berlin Wall to celebrate, many armed with hammers, chisels, and other tools. Over the next few weeks, the wall would be nearly completely dismantled. After talks over the next year, East and West Germany officially reunited on October 3, 1990. This was a result of many changes over the course of 2 years. Gorbachev's reforms within the Soviet Union gave Eastern Bloc nations more freedom to determine their own government and access to the West. Protests from East Germany gained strength, and after Hungary and Czechoslovakia opened their borders, East Germans began defecting en masse. The tear down this wall speech didn't mark the end of Reagan's attempts to work with Gorbachev on improving relations between the two rival nations. He would join the Soviet leader in a series of summit meetings through the end of his presidency in early 1989, even signing a major arms control agreement, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. In the aftermath of the Berlin Wall's fall, many began to reevaluate Reagan's earlier speech, viewing it as a harbinger of the changes that were then taking place in Eastern Europe. In the United States, Reagan's challenge to Gorbachev has been celebrated as a triumphant moment in his foreign policy, and as Time magazine later put it, quote, "the 4 most famous words of Ronald Reagan's presidency," end quote. In the end, Gorbachev's reforms and the resulting protest movements put pressure on the East German government to open barriers to the West. Gorbachev was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1990 for his work in ending the Cold War, including the fall of the Berlin Wall. As for Reagan, as Douglas Brinkley, professor of history at Rice University, told CBS News in 2012, Reagan's speech is, quote, "seen as a turning point in the Cold War because it bolstered the morale of the pro-democracy movement in East Germany," end quote. Yet the greatest impact of the speech may have been the role it played in the creation of Reagan's enduring legacy as president, and in solidifying his legendary status among his supporters as the great communicator. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time.